for us to stand in this moment and be a beacon of change for those throughout the world.
For more than 20 years, the Civil Rights Institute educated people all over the world about what happened here in the 60s and the ramifications of those actions and behaviors, not just in Birmingham, but across our country over the course of the last 50 plus years. I think where we're going as an institute is to really be a beacon of hope for people grappling with whether it's civil rights, equality, the same types of issues that took place here that are manifesting in many different ways in different parts of the world, here in our country and in other countries. Really a beacon of hope and inspiration for people to accomplish the same type of thing, which is at least a commitment to equality for all.
This is a unique moment, I think, for the area. I think for the state. Tourism has evolved within the last 5 years, and so this really creates an opportunity for us to stand in this moment and be a beacon of change for those throughout the world.
For more than 20 years, the Civil Rights Institute educated people all over the world about what happened here in the 60s and the ramifications of those actions and behaviors, not just in Birmingham, but across our country over the course of the last 50 plus years. I think where we're going as an institute is to really be a beacon of hope for people grappling with whether it's civil rights, equality, the same types of issues that took place here that are manifesting in many different ways in different parts of the world, here in our country and in other countries. Really a beacon of hope and inspiration for people to accomplish the same type of thing, which is at least a commitment to equality for all.
This is a unique moment, I think, for the area. I think for the state. Tourism has evolved within the last 5 years, and so this really creates an opportunity for us to stand in this moment and be a beacon of change for those throughout the world.
For more than 20 years, the Civil Rights Institute educated people all over the world about what happened here in the 60s and the ramifications of those actions and behaviors, not just in Birmingham, but across our country over the course of the last 50 plus years. I think where we're going as an institute is to really be a beacon of hope for people grappling with whether it's civil rights, equality, the same types of issues that took place here that are manifesting in many different ways in different parts of the world, here in our country and in other countries. Really a beacon of hope and inspiration for people to accomplish the same type of thing, which is at least a commitment to equality for all.
This is a unique moment, I think, for the area. I think for the state. Tourism has evolved within the last 5 years, and so this really creates an opportunity for us to stand in this moment and be a beacon of change for those throughout the world.
For more than 20 years, the Civil Rights Institute educated people all over the world about what happened here in the 60s and the ramifications of those actions and behaviors, not just in Birmingham, but across our country over the course of the last 50 plus years. I think where we're going as an institute is to really be a beacon of hope for people grappling with whether it's civil rights, equality, the same types of issues that took place here that are manifesting.
Good afternoon. Thank you all for joining us for another Birmingham Civil Rights Institute and their ongoing Birmingham Virtual Conversation Series. We're here because of an emergence of a civil rights movement and a continued clarion call, Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter movement began with the use of social media hashtag after the acquittal of George Zimmerman and the shooting death of African-American teen Trayvon Martin in 2013. Since then, these words have led to the formation of the Black Lives Matter organization, which is centered around nonviolent and civil disobedience protests. The Black Lives Matter movement is historic in the sense that one can argue we've never witnessed such a global, racial, and ethnically diverse participation that's happening simultaneously. We're also witnessing people protesting in solidarity in all 50 states, more than 700 U.S. cities in at least 17 countries, all demanding an end to systemic racism in all of its manifestations while pushing for liberation of communities through financial inclusion, political power, and self-determination, as well as other markers of equity. To be clear, I'm not talking about the organization in itself, but the actual movement to elevate and amplify voices for reimagining social justice. Today, we're joined by two brilliant individuals in Amina Price and Reverend Gwendolyn C. Webb. Amina Price is 25 years old and a graduate from the University of Alabama at Birmingham with the BA in theater. She is currently the creator of a production company called Soul Glow Productions, which includes her podcast, Shaking the Damn Table. Shaking the Damn Table was created in 2019 with the purpose of having conversations around the Black community and topics that may be considered taboo or controversial. It also promotes local and national Black businesses and events. It is a space to feel safe about talking candidly about issues as a Black person in America. Price does some acting still, including being an extra for TV shows and movies, but is currently creating her own content, including videos and short films. Reverend Gwendolyn Cook Webb is a native of Birmingham and one of the original foot soldiers for the civil rights movement. She is currently an associate minister at Hopewell Missionary Baptist Church. Reverend Webb attended the University of Alabama at Birmingham, Jefferson State Community College. She graduated from the Birmingham Police Academy as the second Black female officer and served many years obtaining the rank of detective. Reverend Webb has continued her fight for civil rights as the founder and CEO of Foot Soldiers International Incorporated, founder and CEO of Sisters and Former Sisters Incorporated. Reverend Webb is featured in an Academy Award-winning documentary entitled Mighty Times, The Children's March. So thank you all for your participation in this panel discussion. And I want to open this very important intergenerational dialogue up with this one question. What specific event or individual inspired you to get involved in protest movement?
Go ahead, Amina. You can go ahead.
Okay. So I will say the first time that I actually protested was around the time they were trying to pass the HB 56 laws here in Alabama, which was discriminating against whoever they believed were to be illegal within the country. And similar things were happening in Arizona. I think that was around 2011. But actually what inspired me to even want to go out in the first place was from what I had learned through the Civil Rights Institute and through Birmingham's history from what Dr. Webb has done herself as far as the kids going out and like skipping school, you know, going behind the teachers and running out the windows and everything, like just seeing kids being able to take a stand and make a difference like that definitely was a big inspiration to a child learning about, you know, this history and wanting to make a difference in the world.
What inspired me was hearing this strong man of God, this preacher, pastor, civil rights leader, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. To hear Dr. King and to see what was going on, to see my grandmother having to go into the front of the bus and dropping the coins in and coming back off the bus and getting her grandchildren and carry us to the back of the bus. None of that made me happy in my lifetime, but to see how we as a people, how we were continued to be treated, I knew it had to be a better and brighter day. And to hear Dr. King and see what Dr. Shuttlesworth and what others were doing here, I knew that to be a part of that better and brighter day, I must do something to help make changes. And that's what got me involved in it.
Reverend Webb, how would you describe the similarities and differences between the Black Lives Matter movement of today and the American Civil Rights Movement in which you participated in 1963?
The description is really easy for me to see, and that is the passion in order for myself and so many other young people wanting to be involved in the movement, the passion, the concern, the better, making things better again. But that is the similarity. But the difference is, in a lot of instances, we were taught in order to make things better, we must be better and become better people. We did not allow even others around us to be violent, simply because we were taught that violence was not the way. And Dr. King said that at all times, and Dr. Bevel, our leader, said that at all times, violence is not the way. Only love will change all of this. And we could love and still be nonviolent.
So, Amina, I want to ask you this because, as a young person, you're the face of the new movement, and the torch has been passed across the table to you from Reverend Webb and to others such as yourself. And Reverend Webb, please feel free to chime in on this as well. What advice would you share with someone thinking about getting involved in protesting?
So that's a good question. I think nowadays, with what's going on in the media, what's being put out there as far as what protesting is, a lot of people have a bunch of different concerns and like ideas of what it is. So I think one thing is to research like where you're going and stuff like that, what area you're going into, what the organization who's putting on the protest, what their demands are and such, and just knowing your rights, which I think we in general need to know, knowing your rights against just publicly, like your civil rights, and then also knowing your protest rights as well, because there are certain things which you are allowed to do without being arrested or anything. And then there's some things that are arrestable actions that you can choose whether or not you want to involve in to make a difference. But I think just knowing what you are facing against before you go out there, and also knowing what role you want to play, because you don't have to play, everybody doesn't have to be on the front lines. You can also go out there to protest and be a reporter, because that is something that, as we were talking about, like differences between now and then, technology has been a big advantage in this movement, because now we can record what's happening on both sides. You can be somebody who goes out there just to report, to make sure that there is no discrepancies in what happens, or even if there's a chance of having to go to court or anything, that you have evidence. There's just many things that you can do. So just being able to find what role that you want to play, and just doing your research on what you can do to make a difference when you're out there.
And see, like Amina, I would have her in my group at any time, because she really understands what it takes. Now, Amina, a lot of young people like yourself doing a lot of the situations that I don't call them problems. I said situations that occurred in other places, but especially in Birmingham, with the, I say, riot that occurred. Some young people, you will listen. You are teachable. Some young people, we tried to talk with them, and they did not want to listen. We don't want to listen to the way the old people did it. This is a new time. We want to do it our way. But again, I say to young people like yourself, but see, like I said, you're a listener, which you will make a good organizer. In order for us to be a part of the movement, we had to know how to sit back and strategize.
Mhm.
And then in strategizing, we began to organize.
Mhm.
And then it was time to mobilize. But they didn't want to hear that. So therefore, that is the difference.
Mhm.
We had to listen to the older generation in order to be a part of the situation.
Mhm.
You know, you both mentioned something that I think is very important as you know, the importance of understanding your role in this, right? And I've heard your criticism quite often, Reverend Webb, about this generational disconnect. So now that we're having this conversation, I want to ask you both: how do we bridge this into this generational disconnect? Whereas you see the young people who have this energy and they want to get out in the street and they can do these things and keep this momentum going, and but yet still be connected and representative of the elderly wisdom in the spirit in which the movement has started. Um, feel free to jump in. I mean, I want you to kind of take this first.
Okay. Well, I think one thing that is interesting about this time around with protesting and everything is that, like you said, y'all had a more direct group of leaders. We nowadays, because I think for so long we have taken, we've let society let us believe that racism doesn't exist anymore, or like we've been able to just be more blissfully ignorant of what's going on around us. There's so many people who are now organizers or putting their heads into it that there are so many different agendas. We haven't like necessarily come to one consensus on what we as a people want and what we want to do and how we should do it. So now it's a bunch of different people's opinions and ideas and how they operate. And of course, it's great because we have the numbers as far as seeing that there are a lot of people who want to be involved, a lot of people who are out there doing things, but there isn't a sense of a generalized community like it was then, because it was more centralized into the South and like certain areas. And you had people who had been doing the work for a long time and just dedicated their lives to it. And now it's kind of to the point where it's a little bit everywhere. I think that we are coming more together now because of quarantine, with having to, sit and listen and, take a look at what the demands are and things that should be done and could be done to make a difference. But we don't necessarily have like centralized groups or people who are able to make that gap bridge easier.
And Dr. Wolf, uh, that's a good answer, Miss Amina.
Thank you.
And also, Dr. Wolf, answer to your question, you're doing it right now by bringing young and old together.
True.
Young and old, I'm not going to
Classic.
use the word.
We're gonna say classic.
Right.
Bringing us together. So I'm here to tell you that this is something that is needed, and it has been needed for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And to bring us together like this, we will get better results from it. That's just like Dr. James Luther Bevel. Bevel went out. Now, Dr. King, there are some people that will have you to think that Dr. Martin Luther King put the children out on the street. That is so far from the truth. Dr. King sent for Reverend Bevel, and Reverend Bevel brought all of this together by bringing the children, the youth in to be a part of the movement, but didn't bring us in and say, do it. We were brought in and taught by Dr. Bevel and Ms. Cotton and all of the other leaders. So that is the disconnect, Dr. Wolf. The disconnect is not bringing the two together, and then the teaching element that has been removed.
I'm glad that you mentioned that. So my next question is then, what disciplines are necessary? What should we be teaching as foundational principles before we
Interesting
allow
question.
individuals to take the streets? I'm sorry, that's my Apple Watch wanting to participate in this conversation as well. but yeah, I want to repeat the question. What disciplines or education is necessary for people to understand, to gain as a foundation before taking to the streets?
Go ahead, Amina.
Like she said before, organization is definitely necessary. Just being aware of anything that can happen while being out there and being prepared for it, because you can't just go out expecting one thing, because you don't know what's going to happen. And being able to just confine, like back then, having the organization and knowing that everybody who's there knows not to engage in a certain way. So being able to know that everybody who has been in the meetings and the trainings and all that stuff, you guys know how to go out there and engage. So anybody who acts differently from that, you know, they're not a part of what you guys put together. Just having that organization is a discipline within itself, because that's what helps make the difference. Because just going out there to go out there, it does something, but it doesn't do what all the planning and stuff like that can do to make a larger impact on what's going on.
For instance, Dr. Wolf and Amina, the rioting that occurred in Birmingham, Alabama, all eyes, believe it or not, all eyes all over the nation. Guess who they were looking at? Birmingham. They were waiting to see what we were going to do. We have always been the example of the nonviolent movement. And on that evening here at Kelly Ingram Park, I was one of the speakers. And it was so good and I saw what was about to happen. And I told some of the other ministers, some of the other pastors and preachers there, I said, unless this is stopped, we're going to have problems in the city of Birmingham tonight. And one of them asked me, he said, are you sure, Reverend? I said, I see it and I feel it. Leaders are not just placed out there because you can yell the loudest or you can cause additional problems. Those are not your leaders. But leaders, there are a lot of things that have to be born into you, like with Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And then the other things are taught to you from people like Dr. King, Dr. Bevel's, and others. So if there are those that will not listen and will not be obedient to the call, the CALL, to make the CAUSE better, then those are individuals you want to set to the side. You really don't want them a part of any movement that you're involved in. That's for civil rights, Black Lives Matter, Foot Soldiers International. I have another organization that we have started, which is Women of War, but it's men and women of war, not at war, of war. We're the teaching component to assist in this endeavor.
I want to go back to you on this, because you've mentioned this quite a bit. You speak about the wisdom and instruction of the leaders of the 60s, right? From your perspective, what are the lasting messages of Martin Luther King Jr., Fred Shuttlesworth, and Bevel and others during the Children's Crusade March of 1963? And I would even expand it to the movement within itself. Like, what is the lasting message that we need to take from your experience in the time period of your young foot soldier days to pass on to individuals such as Amina and those that are sitting on I would say on the margins, contemplating to get involved, to become the next Amina?
Well, again, Dr. Wolf, and look, let me say this to you. You're a wise young man. I'm going to keep you around. You really dressed that word up well. But my advice, just like the advice that Dr. King even gave, his last word, and then we'll come back up to the present. When he told everybody that he said, I may not get there with you. I may not get there with you. But what he was saying is that, but we're going to get there. He was saying that I have left you everything that I had to leave to you. And I can't live forever. I'm not going to. And my words would be is to follow his teachings, his right here in Birmingham, in a lot of instances, Dr. Wolf, it appeared that people have gotten afraid to teach what we learned in the past. I cannot be one of those individuals that are cowed down, or I will be afraid to teach young, bright students like Ms. Amina, and even like yourself, Dr. Wolf. You're still there to learn to be able to teach the right thing. My last words would be just like what Dr. King said then. My last words would be that I myself, along with so many other students that was with us, those that are still here, so many have passed on, is that we have fought a good fight. We fought a good fight. And I'm still fighting the fight that Dr. King and Dr. Belvels and so many others have taught us. I travel all over the country when I'm invited. And some people, like, I have a godson in Washington, D.C. The first thing, Ma, you got to consider your age. I said, baby, you got to consider who I am. And God didn't bring me this far to just leave me. And we are still here, Dr. Wolf.
Yes.
Dr. Amina. We are still here just for, all you've got to do is reach out and touch us. I mean, there are some that will go along to get along. Well, the young folks said, the young folks won't. No, I shall not. I will not go along to get along. We used to sing a song, I shall not be moved. Like the tree standing by the water, I shall not be moved. We cannot be moved by everything that comes along. We cannot be moved by every individual that comes along. But we must continue to be moved by the positive things that we were taught to do. And my words to you, Dr. Wolf, Dr. Amina, don't stop fighting the right battle. Don't be moved by every little wind that blows. I cannot, and I shall not. I'm going to continue to fight the fight. Dr. King stayed in the Word of God, and that is where I am. I am going to continue to fight that fight by putting the Word of God first and foremost. Oh, you two guys, you have restored a whole lot of faith in me. You really have. By just your words and your faces and those big bright smiles, because I know who you are. And I don't really know you, but I know who you are and whose you are by the things that you continue to do for so many people. I know, maybe I deviated somewhat.
No. You're right on. I appreciate you and I thank you for just pouring into us and for those who are watching as well and listening. Amina, as you're intaking this, right? And please, Reverend Well, please feel free to jump in as well. How can we use this message to continue the momentum in this fight for achieving equality, equity, and ultimately inclusion and access for our peoples. And when I say our peoples, it's not just for black and brown peoples, but for all the communities.
Right. I think something that she said that was very profound, that actually you can take in a spiritual sense as well. Like, as far as when you're following Christ, you have to kill the desires of yourself. You can't live for yourself. So the same thing with the movement. You can't just live for yourself, or like trying to do it for notoriety for yourself. Like Dr. King said, he's not going to always be there. Everybody's not going to always be there, but the fight still continues throughout that. So we have to be able to not just do it for ourselves, but be able to go out there for anybody. Like nowadays, it's very encouraging to see so many more people who are not Black fighting for Black issues. And that should be the thing across the board. I don't have to be trans to fight for trans issues. I don't have to be I don't have to be Mexican to fight for Mexican issues. We should all be able to go out there and kill whatever, just because it's not my fight necessarily, before going out there, but just going out there because we're people, and equality should be across the board, regardless of what you believe, how you practice, whatever you practice. We should just be able to go out there and fight for what is right.
Young lady, I could just squeeze you. And I'm going to do that as soon as I see you both. And then I say this. A young man who just happened to be Black is my personal attorney and my organization attorney. And he didn't just take this, for your word, Dr. Wolf, he didn't take this seasoned woman and just set her to the side. He selected her to be his campaign manager. And that, you just don't know how that made me feel. But he listened. He didn't say, well, this is my campaign, I'm not going to listen. He listened to everything that I suggested to him in a city that used to be known as one of the hanging cities here in Alabama. And that city is Tarrant City. And I'm here to tell you, I don't like to use the word as the first Black mayor, but he's now the mayor-elect. He has been elected to the city of Tarrant, a young man. Tarrant, 102 years. But I'm here to tell you, the two of you are living examples of what this society is headed to. And I'm going to be calling on both of you, just like prayerfully you'll be calling on me.
Okay. Amina, you want to add something?
Oh no, I wasn't going to say anything.
Okay. So bear with me as I try to put this question together. As we're talking about this, one thing that comes to mind is how we think about activism in this work, it becomes romanticized. And if we're not careful, it can disillusion us into believing that the moment we take the streets, the moment we amplify our voices, we get these platforms, that change is going to happen almost instantaneously. The Montgomery bus boycott, 13 months of ongoing boycott. Here, we sometimes criticize our social media driven generation that we have keyboard activism that lasts for a period of 2 weeks. If it's not done in 2 weeks, we just let it go and it just falls by the wayside. And in this work, there's a price that's to be paid for activism. One of those prices is you're going to get arrested. That's if you're lucky. That's if you're lucky. John Lewis, he had his skull cracked. And I don't wish that on anybody. But for those, who are trying to avoid getting arrested, and for those who have been arrested, I don't know your story, Mina, but I do know Reverend Webb's story. I've studied you quite a bit, ma'am. What was that experience like for you? And what would you recommend recommend for those who are out in the streets who at some point may have to pay that price to get us to this point of equality, equity, justice, freedom, liberation, and so forth?
Well, Dr. Wolf, like I said, I'm going to squeeze you. Very good. Very, very, very good question. And for that, my friend, who's gone on to glory, and I know that's where he is. His head was bloody, yes, but unbowed. He never bowed his head. They sick the dogs on us, but we were there, but we were not afraid, not really, because we had been taught and we listened to everything that was said to us. What we're going to have to do, again, I say to you, is listen. Listen. A lot of things. So what if we go to jail? We knew we would possibly go to jail. And on the morning when I was getting ready to go, I was trying to put a little extra starch in my clothes, so just in case I went. And got some extra paper bags what we could make rollers out of with the brown paper bag. Well, because we wanted to be cute in jail.
That's all right.
But we knew it was a possibility that we would go. It was a possibility that some of us could have lost our lives. But your main question, Dr. Wolf, it was not about us. That's what we felt in our hearts. It was not just about us. It was about others that will come even after us, is what we were trying to pave the way for. Like I said earlier, for my grandmother, for my mother, for my father, and for my younger siblings, it was not about us. And if the young people today will not focus their attention on just themselves, it's not about them. It's about making things better and brighter days for all of the people that's around us and even those that will come after us. You know, I'm like Dr. King. I may not get there, Dr. Wolf, Dr. Amina, with you, but I tell you, we're going to get there even further on this journey. So I can't say it enough. I'm so proud of all of you and all of the young people that helped to form and set up this to bring us together.
I agree. I think one thing from my experience, which what she just said is not about us, was something that just rang true throughout it, because nowadays with how protesting and stuff goes on, like I said, there's many different views of what happens and what can happen when going out there, but you really can't expect what's going to happen, because at the end of the day, if they choose to arrest you, they will arrest you. And that's what happened to me. And for my situation, all I could think about was how many other people I've seen on video, just heard through different experiences and stuff like that, who were in the same situations, but it didn't turn out the same way. And then even being in the jail, there was a couple of women who are already in there as well. And one of them, she seemed to have like a lot of mental health issues and stuff like that. So just seeing all these different things that need to be changed within the system, and just why, I was there in the first place, that's what comforted me. I didn't feel afraid to be in jail. We were all together, and thankfully the organizations here in Birmingham have a strong jail fund. They believe in not leaving anybody behind. They're going to wait until everybody gets out. And just having that community but knowing that you're there for a purpose and that you are here to help make the movement apparent to everybody, like why you're out there, and then just experiencing what other people have experienced before just gives you that sense of knowing what you're doing it for.
So we do have a question from the audience, and the question that we received is what are the most pressing social justice issues of today?
Go ahead, Amina.
Well, I don't think that one really takes precedent over the other. There are many systems, unfortunately, within America that are killing Black and brown people at disproportionate rates, including the justice system, healthcare system. So I just think that anything, just like we said before, just anything that is within a violation of human rights or civil rights, like Dr. King said, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. All of them play a part, and all of them needs to be changed to the point where there is accountability for people who are in higher power, the same way that there's accountability for us when we commit a crime.
And I agree with Dr. Amina totally. I agree with her. And in agreeing with you, all injustices, we must continue to deal with those. To Dr. King always said that he couldn't be free until all people are free. And not only Dr. King, Gandhi, and one other, but so many. Until we get all the injustices, until we deal with all of them, then we can't be free simply because we have dealt with a few. We must deal with all of them. In order, Black Lives Matter, yes, Black Lives Matter. But we're going to make sure that every life that is taken matters. We're just going to make sure that all injustices are dealt with.
As I'm reflecting on this, I want to ask this question. This is going to be a pretty broad question. What does success look like for this grassroots movement and these efforts?
What does success look like?
Yes.
That's another good question. You are really deep. Success to me looks like when we can bring diversities together in love, when we can bring diversities together in love, true love, when we can no longer judge, even when we continue to come up, an individual by the color of his or her skin, by their sexual preferences, but judge them by the color and content of their character. Dr. King was so far ahead of his time. When we stopped judging and being so judgmental, but began to be so loving. Success, now that's what success looked like to me, when I can see all of that in its proper perspective.
I agree. And also just having real systemic change within this country, because a lot of the times there's band-aids that we're given to make it seem like something is changing, but in actuality, the root of it hasn't changed at all, which gives them still the leeway to create those situations to where there's inequality. So just having real systemic change, changing how the police operate, what their training is, all of it. It has to be real. It can't just be painting Black Lives Matter in the street.
Can you both expound on that? you're talking about systemic and infrastructural changes that need to be made. What are some of the additional infrastructural and systemic changes that need to be made beyond police reform, defunding, or whatever we want to call it, depending on who you ask? What else needs to be done?
Like I said before, I don't think it's just that system that creates inequality or kills Black and brown people at disproportionate rates. Like I said, the healthcare system is also something that needs to change, how we treat and listen to Black women who often are having troubles with having babies and hospitals and stuff like that, and having troubles just in health in general being listened to, and then something gets ignored and then it turns into something later which ends up killing them. Just different systems like that, even, you know, poverty and stuff like that. It's just a lot of things that there is not an equality to where we're being treated. Like back in the 60s, it was all about separate but equal. And of course, there was no equality then. But now that we're not separate anymore, we're still seeing that nothing has changed. So being able to actually put into practice the accountability of people who are in these higher positions and these professions, and not being able to just discriminate against Black people and then decide how our lives are being affected from that.
I agree. If I may.
Yes, please.
I agree. Regardless to the color of one individuals that we are putting in leadership position, we must hold them accountable as well. We must hold them accountable and make sure that the laws that they're making are laws that will continue to help us as well, but not just to say, well, I'm here. I know when I was in school, I used to get a lot of, I've got mine. You better get yours.
Mhm.
How am I going to get mine if you're not teaching me how to receive mine? So therefore, we've got to make sure that those laws, even though we may have put people who look like us in positions, make sure that they are watching and also creating laws that will continue to help to protect us as well.
I want to kind of expand, kind of sit right here and then expand this a little bit. As we're talking about accountability and this greater sense of social responsibility, we're also watching a university step up. They're putting out statements. You're watching corporations step up, such as Ben and Jerry's pushing out statements and even putting up money to fund these groups, and to fund movements, to fund various agendas. What more can our universities and our academics do to, as well as our corporations, do to incorporate social justice issues into their spaces and our fields of expertise?
Creating more opportunities, I think, for those conversations within those spaces, because there have been companies who truly do believe and stand behind and have always stood behind those movements. And some people who now, because of social media and Black Twitter, they don't want to get, you know, into the crossfire of not saying anything. So they'll say something, but they don't really support the movement. So actually having those conversations within those universities, having safe places for different diversities within those universities as well, something that can be done. Just actually truly supporting what is happening in the movement, not just trying to say it just to say it.
And for instance, when Dr. King was out there, you'll always hear me talk about Dr. King. But some industries will say, but he would name them, if they did not play their part and seeing that all things were fair and equitable for all people and people of color. He said, well, you don't shop at those places anymore. You don't give your money to those places or those individuals any longer. We have got to learn by examining and studying the people that are real, Dr. Amina, like you said, and the people that are Memorex. If you are really real, we're going to see the things that you have done and the things that you are doing, not just for some of the people who look like you, but all of the people who may or may not look like you. There are some big companies right now that could do more, Dr. Wolf, as you said. They need to step up to the plate. And that is what I tell people everywhere that I go, even right here in our own city. We've got to step up to the plate and make some positive changes with so many things right now. There are times when if you have to go out of the city of Birmingham, when you have born and bred leaders right here to get some people and pay them thousands of dollars to teach nonviolence, then Dr. Wolf, I said, Birmingham, we've got a problem. When you have those people right here and people outside of Birmingham, and I'm not ashamed to say it, pay me well to come there because the credentials are there. Everything that I was taught, I'm still utilizing it by the life that I live. So tell me, Dr. Wolf and Dr. Amina, what's wrong with us teaching here? That's not being done. So we have got to step up to the plate ourselves.
I mean, I'm gonna put you on the spot. I gotta put you on the spot. Respond to that, Amina.
I agree. It's definitely a lot more that can be done within your own neighborhood, your own community and stuff like that. As far as like businesses and organizations and stuff like that, a lot of times it's easy to go make a national statement or, do something on that kind of level, but to actually go pour back into a community and actually show your support to communities and people who are out here doing the work and stuff like that is where that disconnect is. Even just as simple as paying the Black employees that you have in your business what they're worth and not, having that wage gap between people who don't have the same credentials and stuff like that. There needs to be a more of a connection between these organizations and what they're saying and how they're actually treating Black people as an organization or as a university or as, any kind of affiliation.
Okay. So we're getting ready to wrap this up. So we have like 2 more questions that I want to ask. I want to make sure that I get out there. The first question is, we can't ignore that we are also in this time of a global pandemic. COVID-19 has, disrupted not only the health system, but it's also disrupted economics, it's disrupted social systems and so forth. With that being said, how has the pandemic affected activism and what innovative steps can we take to continue to get the message out? Or what steps are you already taking to get the message out?
I think it's affected it in the sense of we go back to 2014 with Trayvon or even 2016 with like Mike Brown, Austin Sterling, Philando Castile, when there were a surge of protests that were coming up and Black Lives Matter movement was really starting to spread around the nation. Being stuck at home, because in the 60s, you guys were faced more with it head on. And like I said earlier, we have gotten into a society where we can kind of choose to ignore what we want to and decide whether or not we want to be involved in it, because we're not necessarily faced with it head on like that. But being stuck in the house and having to just, rely on social media for entertainment, or just, being at home, we've been forced to just see how it is. Like, people who haven't been involved with those past circumstances and cases, now seeing it just being still is a different atmosphere. It's kind of giving us that urgency like the 60s, to where you can't ignore it. Like, you may want to try to scroll past it, but there goes another video, there goes another hashtag, there goes another name. Like, you can't ignore it like you want to. So that has given more light to the movement, in a good and bad way, of course, because of course we don't want to have to deal with this. We don't want to have to go out there. We shouldn't have to go out there. But because of what's happening, and it being shown on that level, not only is it giving more light to us, like I said, even before, having other races who may not have understood the movement before are now coming out to protest. And now we're getting more numbers. And now we're having more ways to shine light to these different cases, and knowing how to go about getting that justice. Because now people are looking up, oh, I see somebody like Breonna Taylor's case. I see Breonna Taylor died. She still hasn't got justice. Who should we talk to in order to get this to happen? And now people are saying, okay, you can call these people, you can go do this. And that's given more of access on how to, like I said, choose a role within this. Whether you're that person who calls the attorney general every day and says, hey, can y'all arrest the killer to Breonna Taylor? Or if you're the person who will go out there and be on the front lines.
Okay. Reverend Webb?
One thing that this is the best time to teach right now with people closed in. This is the best time to really do a lot of good teaching. And talking to a lot of young people since the pandemic, but I'm always doing that. And I ask them, have you seen the the award-winning document, Mighty Times for Children's March? You would be surprised at how many children who look like us have not yet seen it. And the question is to them, did they not show it to you in your school? No, ma'am. And what I'm asking parents to do is to get the documentary. Check it out at your library. And if your library don't have it, you ask them, why not? Get it, demand it. This is prime time to teach young people what it was like then and bring them up to reality now, but teach them the right way. Oh, this is a very good teaching opportunity to you both. And I just thank God for both of you and for the Institute, for what the Civil Rights Institute is doing.
Absolutely. So last question, just 1 minute if you can. You keep your answer in 1 minute. Last parting words. What is it that you want to be a take home for everybody that's watching this today?
Just like I said before, educate, like she said too, as well, educate yourself in your rights, just as a person, and even going out and protesting and everything, and find something that you can do to make a change, because we all have a part in this. And like I said, you don't have to always be on the front lines to make a difference. There's so many things that you can do, but we can't ignore the injustices of this country anymore. Everybody has to take a role.
Okay.
My parting words will be, learn right, do right, and be right to make things better in society. Just learn right, do right, and be right. And those are my parting words.
Someone asked about the documentary. What's the name of the documentary again, Reverend Webb?
The name of it is Mighty, oh, I'm so glad you asked. Mighty, M-I-G-H-T-Y, Times, T-I-M-E-S, the Children's, that's apostrophe S, March, Mighty Times for Children's March.
Okay, great. I'm glad that we got that. So I want to leave my closing words. I'm going to echo the words of Reverend John Lewis when he was at Black Lives Matter Plaza on June 7th in DC. He stated, just as people of all faiths and no faiths and all backgrounds, creeds, and colors banded together decades ago to fight for equality and justice in a peaceful, orderly, nonviolent fashion, we must do so again. I tell you, in the past few days have been so inspiring to me to see so many young people, so many children. It gives me great hope, and we're going to get there. It's all going to work out, but we must help it work out. We must continue to be bold, brave, courageous, push and pull till we redeem the soul of America and move closer to a community at peace with itself. But no one will be left out or left behind because of race or color or nationality. I thank you all for your contributions for this discussion. I hope that it continues to move and inspire others to action. I hope it gets replayed over and over again. And thank you to the Birmingham Civil Rights Institute for allowing us to hold this space today. Thank you and take care. We're signing off.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, and also join us next Thursday for another conversation, and follow Birmingham Civil Rights Institute at BHAMCIVIL RIGHTS Birmingham Civil Rights at Twitter. I believe it's, oh yeah, we also have it on Instagram as well, and also Facebook, on all social media channels.
And become a member.
Yes, please be a member.
I'm on the board.